Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, we'll be talking about all things real estate investing with a local real estate mogul. That's just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed lives.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, if you looked at the Forbes list of the wealthiest people on the planet, just about all of them have real estate investing in their portfolio. The stock market can go up and it can go down. There have been stock market crashes. Anybody who watched the stock market in the last year or so knows the tums that you need to take. But real estate seems to be very consistent across time. Let's talk about that today with Alex Hemani. He is the CEO and president of ALNA Properties.
I really appreciate it.
All right, so I want the audience to hear your story of getting involved, because you're a self-confessed serial entrepreneur and you get into real estate at kind of like a weird time.
At the worst time you could ever imagine. I moved here in Dallas in January of 2005. Didn't know what I was going to do. Some homes here and there, and that's what I was doing, dabbling into when I was in Florida. And I realized here that houses were cheap. So it wasn't that profitable to build. So I started buying a few properties here and there, single family homes, and turning them into rentals. And then the crisis hit. You know, the economy fell off the wagon and housing took a dump, right? Fell, and I saw an opportunity that let's buy these properties at a discount. So I started, you know, and in real estate, you always need leverage, you need financing, right? So at that time, where do you get financing from? So you had to go to your local banks. So you walk into your local banks. I went to about 150 of them, and they all laughed at me.
Let me get that straight. 150 banks.
150 banks I walked into in the Metroplex, and they all laughed. They were like, "You're crazy. No one is buying homes. Everybody's foreclosing on homes. The value of, and you want to buy these things, right? It's like catching a falling knife. And no banks are in the business of making money and not making risky loans. I get that, right? So, and politely, some of them looked me in the eye and said, "You're crazy."
Talk to me about tenacity for a second, because I think there's a lesson that all of us can learn, regardless of whether the viewer gets into real estate investing or not. But, I mean, after the first bank said no, you could certainly have said, okay, well, bad idea. Our second bank says no, third bank says no. I mean, what keeps you going?
Your vision. If you believe in something, like I believe to my core that these assets, this space was going to be an institutional space and it was going to grow in value, and this was the play. Believed it in my core. So whether the other guy believes it or not and laughs you out of the room, so be it. But if you believe in it, then you just...
This man, because he was crazy like a fox. That turned out to be a very wise move, didn't it?
You know, if you think about it, and I've been speaking on panels for over a decade, and when I first started speaking, you know, single family rental space still was not an institutional space. Wall Street was not involved. They didn't create it as an asset class. You can go back and you can say, look, multifamily is an asset class that's traded on Wall Street. Commercial is, you know, industrial is, but single family rentals was not. And it took a while for everyone to believe into it. And then just in the later part of the last decade, it actually became an asset class that gets traded.
Okay, let's talk about why it's so stable. I mean, there are other real estate investments you can make that are kind of like going to Vegas and rolling the dice. But with single family homes, providing you have good tenants, it's a very consistent investment over time, isn't it?
Always will be, right? Because you're getting a twofold effect, right? One is you're getting your value of your properties are continuously increasing. So you're capturing appreciation. So that's on what we call on paper, you know, your book value. And then also your tenant, it's a much more better quality tenant than a tenant that lives in a multifamily. So if you live in an apartment and you're doing well, and maybe you can't afford to buy a house just yet, you can't get financed, but you're in that middle range, right? So you're making more money. So now what do? Well, you can rent a house, which is a bit more expensive than renting an apartment, but you're a more quality tenant. So when times get bad, economy starts suffering, COVID, things of that nature, single family rentals, if you look at it through nationally, are doing fine.
And they treat the home as if it's their own. They're not going to trash it like maybe a 20-year-old might trash an apartment.
Sure, because it's a more quality tenant, right? Again, it's a step up above that person that's renting that one-bedroom studio apartment to somebody who's renting out a 1,800 square foot 3-bedroom home, right? It's
Yes.
They got to take care of the lawn, they got to take care of, you got neighbors now that you got to be nicer to and things of that nature.
Sure.
So different quality tenants. So yeah, they do take care of it much better.
And Alex has become something of a thought leader in the space. In fact, there's a picture of you and Governor Abbott together. Let's talk about that. You were on a panel with the governor?
No, actually, I was on a panel at the IMN. That's
okay.
a picture of the governor at one of those events. I forgot what it was, but
yeah.
So we talk, and when people have questions about single-family housing or where the market is going or where things are headed, they reach out, and we're open on our advice and give them what we think.
But one of the things I love about you, Alex, is that you give away the gold. You give away the secrets. You demystify investing in single-family homes. Tell us why you're called to do this.
Honesty is your best policy, right? Whatever's meant for you, Jeff, you're going to get. I can't stop that. No one can stop that, right? So if I guide you the wrong way, or if I'm not honest and upfront about it, then sooner or later it's going to come back at me.
Yes.
Right? So at the end of the day, there's enough out there. The ocean's big. I mean, what do we hide?
Yes, I love that about you. And there's probably a lot of people watching right now who are fearful that we're entering a bubble, and would getting into real estate investing right now be a bad move? What do you say?
So that's a question that everyone keeps asking. Like, housing prices just are increasing significantly. Are we in a bubble? And I think finally yesterday, Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan Chase finally came out and said, yes, we're heading towards a bubble, or we're in a bubble. We said something that's similar. However, let's talk about what the definition of a bubble is for a second. Back in the day, in 2008, when the crisis happened, you had the mortgage paper was bad.
Mm-hmm.
Today, the mortgage paper is not bad. These are quality, credit-worthy borrowers who have qualified and are credit-worthy. So loan is good, right? Second, you've got builders from 2008 till now didn't build enough supply for obvious reasons, because they didn't want to be back in the same mess they were back then. So you have a lack of inventory. So you've got, instead of a bubble, what you've got is an inventory crisis.
Yes.
Right? You have a lack of inventory. So that's what's causing the prices of homes to go up. There isn't many of them to sell or to buy. So I wouldn't call it a bubble. Right? I don't think that's the case. I think we may be nearing the top, but depends, real estate is always local. So it depends what part of the country you're in also, right?
Yes.
So that matters too.
And Alex is a published author. You published in Forbes. Let's go ahead and put that on the screen. I love the idea that you're educating people through your website and through the mainstream media. It's important to get education if you're going to get into real estate investing.
Absolutely. You want to continue getting as much education as possible. And I think that particular article had leverage on it, if I'm not mistaken. So leverage in real estate is extremely important, right? Because cash on cash return can only go so far, right? But when you add debt on top of it, your cash on cash return goes exponentially higher.
Yes.
So leverage is extremely important, but too much leverage is never good either. So let me make that clear.
Well, you wrote a great blog that I was reading before you came in about some top mistakes that people make. And one of the mistakes was putting too much money into the house that you'll never get back.
Yes. So if you're if you're turning a house into a rental property, right? What good does it do you to put the highest end fixtures in, or put in the best granite countertops, or put in the best? So a lot of new investors that come in and they buy that house and they want to turn it into a rental, they look at it from an emotional point of view rather than a business point of view, right?
Yes.
So that's important to distinguish. So as an emotional point of view, they want to make that house so pretty and so beautiful, but the rent is still going to be the same. You're not going to get any extra money because that person that's renting it is going to look at all the other houses in the neighborhood and they're going to pay what they can afford.
Yes.
So you can put gold-plated stuff in there, it means nothing, right? So at the end of the day, you don't want to get emotionally involved where you put so much into it and then you realize your return on investment isn't there because that's sunken cost. It's too late.
Yes. Well, I know that there's a lot of kind of get rich quick schemes out there, and people will do a seminar over the weekend, and then they'll kind of roll the dice. You have more of a get rich slow philosophy, don't you?
Yeah. So there are a lot of gurus out there, right? And they pitch hey, you're going to make X amount of money, pay us this much for the seminars. I don't do seminars, and I'm not a guru, right? I don't want to charge people to give them advice. I don't believe in that. I think it's a business model for others, and it works great. They've made millions doing it, and kudos to them. But that's not who I am as a person, right? So somebody picks up the phone or see on the street or even interviews like this, and you ask a question, we're going to answer it, but we don't want anything in return.
Yes.
Right? We're not asking for nothing in return, right? There's nothing you're going to provide to us that's going to be important to me that you're giving. So the get rich schemes are out there. The slow and steady always wins the race. That's been the philosophy from day one, right? So the people that bought rentals back when I was buying it and continued buying them, every year you've seen an appreciation in your property.
Yes.
Right? So that slow and steady won the race at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Be the turtle rather than the hare.
I mean,
and Alex is not resting on his laurels. You've gotten into commercial real estate as well.
So our next opportunity venture we're seeing now is we're looking at, we're saying, where is there a problem in this whole real estate space? What asset class is either struggling or about to struggle, and we all know what it is. It's the office space, right? We're looking at it, and COVID finishes up. Are people going to come back to the office? Are they not going to come back? No one knows these answers just yet, right? And even if they do come back, companies have gotten smarter and figured out, well, do we really need all this space, right? Do we really need all these people in the office? And some people who are working from home want to stay working from home. So that office space is the most shakiest space in the real estate class. So something that I've come up with is taking an office building and now turning it into a multifamily. So you've got this asset class that's going to struggle or struggling, and you've got this demand of people needing a space to live that isn't out there, right? So what do you do? So why not merge the two?
Brilliant.
Right? So so I bought my first commercial building in December of last year, and we took architects and we turned it into a plan of how many apartments we're going to be able to put in there, and we took it to the city, and the city approved our plans. So we are going to be doing our first private equity raise for that project maybe 30 days from now. And since we're already approved with the city, we're going to probably start construction sometime this summer, be done next summer. And now we just did something that, and I'm sure others are going to follow, as it always works that way, right? But I still want to be at the beginning.
Yes.
Like I was with the housing of this new venture. I want to be the forefront guy, and then others will come and they'll probably surpass me and whatever. That's great. But I still want to be the guy that started it.
Alex, thank you so much. You've been a great guest. We're going to have you back again soon.
No worries, anytime.
We're going to end by putting up the website so people can get in touch. AlexHemani.com is the website. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jeff.
You bet. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.